on the ground and roll it over.
You also take it to
No.
Uh,
Sort of, yeah.
we've got about 19 there. That's too short. I don't think this is going to win anyway. 23, 24 is the leading still.
Ah, shit.
Hey, were you guys 24 and a half? That's pretty tall, but you can't hold it.
Please.
You can't hold it. 0. Nope.
No, it's off the ground. Measure it.
4.
All right, yeah.
All right. What were you guys, 24 and a half? Current leaders so far, 24 and a half, 0. What?
Oh, nothing.
No.
Okay, but if it had worked.
Did I miss you guys?
You forgot to.
I know. You guys were on the ground when I said hands off.
Can we just see how tall it is?
Yeah.
Disqualified.
Not tall enough. 19? 19 and a half?
That's respectable.
It's respectable. Who's calling for a measurement over here? Not you.
Yeah.
Was this here when I asked for measurement?
We took a picture of it a long time ago. Because it kept tilting, so we were going to fall.
22 and a half. You still didn't quite make it. Sorry. Very respectable. No. And don't hit me with that either. All right. All right, we have a group down here that's excited, and they think they have a chance. Let's take a look. No. Yeah, 16. I don't know. 28 inches. Sorry, team back there. Not quite. 28 up here in front. Very nicely done. Is anybody didn't get a measurement that thinks they were tall? All right, very good job. And the winners, take a bow, take a bow. Very good. Now back to your seats.
Standing up straight, it would be 30.
Take your trash with you.
That was helpful.
All right. Go sit down. Sit down. Sit down. In your seats. Go sit down.
Are we done with our structures?
Yes.
We should put that on the show.
And you can come pick those up when you're done. Go sit down. All right. All right. Hey, you guys are going to have to quiet down just a little bit. I don't have a mic, so don't make me scream. Just quiet down. Sit down. Quiet down. If you want to eat those marshmallows that you've all been handling for 20 minutes, go ahead. Okay, so Marshmallow Challenge was a TED Talk years back by Tom Wujcik, originally by Peter Skillman quite a number of years ago, even by my standards. And so the idea was you take this simple project, you're building a small tower out of some simple materials. And people have done this all over the world, especially in team building, in businesses, and in schools. And as they've gone through and done these all over the world, there are a number of things that they've learned that I want to share with you today. So it's a simple activity, but there are some deep lessons that you can learn. So the first one is that prototyping matters. So how many of you put the marshmallow on your structure sooner than 9-minute mark? A couple? How about the winning team? Did you guys? No? Okay, well, last year they did. So, in the typical progress in one of these sessions, you meet up as a team, and you get oriented, you figure out what these materials are, what is this challenge about, what are we supposed to be doing? And then you spend some time planning out, like what are we going to do, how are we going to approach it? And then you spend a lot of time building it. You get to the end and you say, ta-da, we built this thing, whatever that is. But at the end, when you go to put your marshmallow on the top, that ta-da turns into an oh no, and it topples over. So we had 2 of you raise your hands and said that you had a 0, but how many of you ended up with a 0? Raise your hands. Get them up there high, right? Significantly more than 2, right? So a lot of you fell down. How many of you ended up with significantly less than you thought you were going to when you stuck that marshmallow on there, right? A whole bunch of you, because they fell down, right? Because you thought that nice little fluffy marshmallow wouldn't be any big deal. So any guesses who consistently performs badly at a marshmallow challenge? Well, what was that? Ladies, I guess that someone owes you an apology after lecture. You can deal with that later. Who consistently performs poorly are recent business graduates, business people in general. People in industry really stink at this. And why might that be? Well, so there's a good hint. The guy's on his phone, he's distracted. Another reason is people in industry, and this includes a large part you guys, are taught to plan out your entire action, execute a perfect plan, and you get to the end and you've built the perfect thing and you deliver it and it's wonderful, right? You stick the marshmallow on top and everything works just right. So how many of you built your structure all the way to the top, got close to the end time and stuck the marshmallow on, right? A whole lot of you. How did that go? Pretty badly for the most part? Most of you, right? Who consistently performs really well at this? Any guesses? Yeah, somebody had a good call there. Recent kindergarten graduates. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she would do better than almost all of you at this. Partially because she's a kindergartner, and partially because she's just smarter than all of you. But when you look at this, you might ask yourself why. So when you look at what most of you did and what most of those business students, recent graduates would do is they go through and they orient and plan and they build one perfect thing and then it fails and they have a bad delivery. You guys are hilarious. But what kindergarten students tend to do is they immediately stick the marshmallow on top of a piece of spaghetti and start building from there. And they prototype and they try different things. And whenever they try something and it fails, they learn from their failure, okay? So how many of you in your EPICS projects think you have this grand plan and you put together a Gantt chart or some kind of timeline and you go through and you build that first thing that you ever thought of and it stinks, right? Happens a lot, okay? It happens to all of us who tend to do these kind of project work, right? So this was over an 18-minute span, but this is also true over an 18-month span, okay? When you're doing a big project, you want to fail fast and fail often. You want to learn from your mistakes. So you want to be learning driven. And if you are planning driven, you will miss out on those learnings until you get to the end and it's too late, okay? So save yourself a lot of frustration. You can prototype your ideas with simple materials, okay? You could go through and build a paper prototype or a cardboard prototype and see if it makes any sense before you invest yourself in this perfect plan and build phase. And even in industries where you think this is impossible, if you're an aero major and you're going to put up an airplane, you don't think they do simulations and testing before they send someone up into space? They absolutely do. So you have to iterate and prototype. Huge piece of learning. So prototyping, learning from it, and refining what you learned. The next thing that you can learn from this, you all worked in a team, and your diverse skill set really matters. So how many of you, when you first started in your team, somebody emerged really quickly as a leader? Right? Teams, can I get a hand? Who had somebody who stood forward and just started talking and took leadership right away? Right? Yeah? If you're not, okay. If you're not raising your hand, you were probably that person. You just didn't know it. Okay? So one of the things that people tend to do when we get to be adults, and we've lost some of that naive creativity as kids, is we jockey for social position in a team. So everybody wants to be in charge and wants to be like the head honcho of their team. The kindergartners that jump into this don't bother with that. They just get right to work. So how you work as a team is a big deal, and learning how to function as a team is very important. But when you look at, so the average for these structures is about 20 inches. How many of you exceeded that today? Not many? Yeah. So business school students tend to do about 10. Lawyers tend to do below the average. Kindergartners get closer to 30 inches on these, believe it or not. As much as you all think that you're very brilliant, kindergartners will beat you out. People who are actual architects and engineers have taken at least a statics class tend to do a little bit better. So you guys up front who did 28 inches, it was 27, 28, you guys achieved as well as kindergartners, but significantly worse than a real engineer should do. CEOs and businesses tend to do a little better than average, but an interesting thing is when you pair them up with an administrator, they tend to do a lot better. Okay, so that's kind of a weird thing. So you have someone who is a decision maker and someone who's a facilitator working together. That team dynamic is better than just the one solo person who thinks that they know what they're doing. Okay, so working together and having that confluence of different skill sets and different point of views are where a lot of the really smart ingenuity and innovation happen. Okay, so work well in your teams. So this last bit isn't super specific to EPICS, but it's kind of interesting anyway. So if you look at that average team performance and say you have 10 teams and they act about this way, about 4 of them fall down, that's about where we were at, and a few are around that kind of average range. If you give them an incentive, and what they did at Autodesk was they offered up a $10,000 reward for the team that won. And what do you think happened? What do you think was the average? So this was the average, okay? After the high stakes, every single one of them broke. Okay? So everybody built up an even bigger, more complicated thing, put even more time into planning and didn't prototype anything, and every single one of them fell down, okay? So whenever you have a project that means a lot to you and really matters, that doesn't mean that you throw aside this prototyping idea that I'm talking about and the iteration, going through multiple versions of a thing, it fell. You guys don't win anymore. But if you come back and you've had that high stakes and you've learned from it and you do it in an informed manner, here was the average again. So they came back 4 months later and they said, we're going to give you another $10,000 challenge. And this time with the learning and some building together, they all went way up and every team did much better on average, okay? So what does that tell you? It tells you that if you have an incentive, if you're really built up to do something meaningful to you, but you haven't built up your skill base through iteration, that you will have low success. But as you develop those skills, you'll get high success. And so I'll end that bit there. So I'll just talk real briefly about a kind of parable that goes into the same idea. So there was a pottery teacher, okay, in a school. And he said, I'm going to I want this half of the class, I want you to spend the whole semester learning to build the perfect pot, okay? I want you to research the history of pots and the design and aesthetics of pots. I want you to make me the most beautiful pot that I've ever seen. That's your goal, okay? And then he said to this half of the class, I want you to build as many pots as you can make this semester. Just crank them out. And the two sections of the class worked hard all semester. And which side do you think built a nicer pot? The class that was focused on building the best pot, or the class that was focused on building the most pots? Most pots. Why? Well, because they iterated and they got practice. They built that skill set, okay? So even if you're working on a project here that you haven't done before and you think, I don't have the skill set, I can't just make this out of nowhere, by going through and iterating and building small versions of your project, building simple prototypes, you will build that experience in yourself. That's how you learn and how you grow, okay? So if you want to build the perfect pot, if you want to have the best outcome in your project this semester, iterate often, fail early so you learn what are the mistakes, what are the pitfalls, and learn from those past mistakes that your teams have made, because you're coming into a tower that's already been started, right? There's already tape on spaghetti when you start in your EPICS projects for most of you. And you need to figure out, where did they go wrong? Where did they go right? Why did they do the things they do? So trying to understand from those past learnings is helpful as well. And I'll let you guys go with that. Thank you very much for your attention. Oh, wait a second. One is you need to turn in your Scantron sheets, and please stack them orderly. Don't just chuck them on the bench. You can put them on the last table out there. And also clean up your spaghetti. All right, have a good week.